All right, so listen closely, because the reality is this is the only video you're going to need to watch this entire year in order to take your services from $5,000 per month up to $50K per month. And I'm not talking net, I'm talking per client. Now, even me with multiple businesses at a 7-figure run rate a year, I still believe in the kind of medium ticket agencies. The reality is I have a lot of boys that do them and they do them well. They're making, like I said, $250,000 a month. But I always tell them this one thing, which is that in order for them to make $250K a month, they need 50 clients. In order for me to make $250K a month, I need maybe 5 clients. And today in this video, I'm going to show you exactly how to do it step by step. Now, the fact that I have buddies that do this and do it at scale already puts me in a pretty good position to tell you that whether you are already crushing it in your industry or you're just starting out and thinking of starting your first agency, this information is going to be highly relevant and is likely to change your perspective on the agency world altogether. Now, in order for me to be able to tell you more about how you can make this kind of leap, I think it's probably relevant to tell you my leaps, how I came to where I'm at today. Now, you see, in university, I started by reselling clothing. So I was doing transactions that were worth $100 to $500. I would go thrifting, I would buy designer clothing, and then I would resell it on my page, on Grailed, on eBay, wherever people would pay for it realistically. Now, through this, you learn a very valuable lesson, which is you can buy something for less and you can flip it for more to people who value it more than you do, or more than the person selling it does. This is a really good basis for entrepreneurship. I see a lot of guys that started in flipping and also in door-to-door sales, which I did before I was in university. From here, I moved up into SMMA. I had a buddy call me one day. He said, hey, I recently learned how to grow Instagram pages. And I said, great, there's probably a business here. I could see the use case for this. So I joined him, and after many cold calls, didn't do a whole lot at all, my other buddy came to me and said, hey, I've been learning how to run ads. I could help run ads for your business. And I was selling them, bada bing, bada boom. That business in the first year did about $130,000 in revenue with about $32,000 in profit. That SMMA, that took me from a $100 price point per transaction up to roughly $1,000 price point per transaction. But again, it was the same amount of work. When I was reselling clothing, I was doing maybe $32,000, $36,000 a year. And when I was doing SMMA, I was making significantly more in revenue than I was previously in flipping clothes. I had a client who came to me, and this is the best thing that never happened to me, basically, because I had a client come to me and say, hey, I'm looking to grow my page more aggressively than you guys can grow it with Instagram giveaways. And so I had to sit down and I put together and mapped out a massive influencer campaign where this guy would be sending jewelry to influencers. They would basically be doing what is today known as UGC, filming themselves, making little videos, and then posting them. And I kind of calculated all the costs, what it would involve. And the guy took one look at it and said, that's way too much money. There's no way I do that. Fast forward a couple of months from that, we had Wall Street Bets happen. And that was when I kind of noticed, okay, there's probably a market for what we are doing, these large scale influencer campaigns in public markets, in financial markets. And that was really the moment where I realized that I could do the exact same work that I had offered one party that he could never have afforded, and do it for another party where they could afford it, because the gain on the other side of that transaction was so large for them that it was well worth it. So we did that. We went out and we did a large scale influencer campaign, Discord, Reddit, paid ads, everything, in order to raise awareness amongst retail investors for a stock for a publicly traded company. This went decently well. I think a decent return on their spend. It's hard to tell when, it's not crazy effective, which it wasn't, because I didn't really know what I was doing. From there, I moved into doing these same influencer campaigns, but for digital assets, and helping digital asset projects, NFTs, crypto, that kind of stuff, raise awareness again amongst retail and accredited investors through influencer promotions on platforms like Twitter, YouTube, Instagram, really you name it, TikTok, we were doing it. And so there I got my handle on everything. I really kind of perfected my craft. I got good at being able to make something viral amongst retail investors and see what that reaction could be in the market. From there, I went back into the public markets when called upon by an individual in my city who was running a number of deals at what's called a merchant bank. They basically help companies go public. And I went back into this space. Now, time I first got into marketing IPOs to the time I returned to it, that year I had done a little north of $1 million in revenue. The reality is that success only came from the fact that I had increased tickets. My marketing budgets now, instead of doing $1,000 per transaction or maybe $2,000 per transaction when I was just selling influencer marketing or just selling Instagram growth. I was now up at around $100,000 to $400,000 tickets. And I was doing effectively the same amount of work for both. So I went from very, very little to quite a lot. And our take on that, our margins were pretty decent. You were sitting anywhere between 20 and 40%. And so I went from making, $32,000 in kind of the first year of starting to making well over $150,000, $200,000 in income in that second year of running the business, because I shifted who I was speaking to and what kind of leverage was placed on the activities that I was doing. The key here is that I simply repositioned my services in order to offer them to the highest bidder, if that's how you want to look at it. And once again, just like when I was selling clothes and I was buying it from somebody who it wasn't worth a lot to and selling it to somebody who it was worth a lot to, I was doing the same thing. I was paying labor or videos or paid ads, whatever it was, that wasn't worth very much to somebody who it was worth a lot to. And my time was worth significantly more to those people because I was doing a more sought after task, not necessarily a harder task, but a task that was more difficult to find somebody to do. And so the supply of people in the market that could do what I was doing was very low, and the demand for what I was doing was very high. And so when you scale that out on a supply and demand graph, it increases the price point significantly. Now, it's very interesting, I suppose, to hear my story or how you can implement this for yourself. But I think what's also important is, why aren't more people talking about this if it's so true? And I think a lot of it has to do with simply how people look at the market, look at their pricing, and look at the services that they're offering, as well as their potential customers. Most people think to themselves, if I charge more, then I have to do more work. The reality is that the markets that you would be entering, where you're charging more, you would be doing basically the same amount of inputs, but with a drastically higher leverage on those inputs. So even though you're charging more, the amount of work and output that the end user is getting is significantly higher. So they're still getting a way higher multiple on your efforts. When you are servicing a part of the market that you are charging more money to, you in reality create better outcomes for the client and happier clients as a result. The other thing is that by delivering services at the cheapest possible number, you're actually going to consistently deliver worse results. You don't have the money to do nice things for somebody, to send them flowers if they're feeling ill, or to fly to them if you need to meet up in person. You don't have the budget to do those kinds of things, especially not from an individual client. But as you start to develop, then it becomes worth it to do those things. What's more, you're willing to spend your own time to do things. You no longer have to outsource everything. When I have clients that I know that I can get funded, you should see me. I'm sitting there just banging on the phones all day long, myself, not a third party, not an outside source. You are actually getting individuals full entire effort because they can make significantly more money. And yes, now I'm in a business where you're charging 30 to 50 grand retainers, but more importantly, I'm in a business where I can make anywhere between 100,000 and $2 to $3 million on successful completion of the transactions. And so by virtue of that, because we're making so much more on the back end, I will do anything and everything to make sure that we get a good outcome. The last kind of component of this is that most people are servicing a market that simply can't bear higher prices. That supply and demand graph that I mentioned earlier is no longer at a low supply, high demand area. It's in a usual market where supply and demand are equal. And if supply and demand are equal, you're getting a mediocre price for your services. So that is to say that most of the time, you're not in a market where you deserve higher prices. What I don't want you to think is that what I'm telling you to do is simply increase your prices and all will be solved. You'll be able to make way more money just by increasing your prices. That's not how this works. You need to service a part of the market where you deserve those higher prices because you are providing value well in excess of the amount that those people are paying you. And that is really the crux of this whole thing. Most guys will stick in the same industry and they'll try and scale horizontally as much as possible. More salesmen, more fulfillment, all of that kind of stuff. That's not really worth it if your base isn't any good. If the baseline for your services, for the value that you're providing, isn't already very high, what use is it to scale horizontally? And so what you really need to ask yourself, and this is a question somebody asked me recently and made me make a large transition as well, is that you need to be playing a game that you can make $1 million to $5 million a year. Or even better, play a game where you can make $10 to $100 million a year. And sometimes, no matter how much work you put in, the vehicle is not the right vehicle to be able to do something like that because there is too much competition and there is too little demand for what you are offering. It's worth reiterating though that your actions, your daily inputs should not change. Simply the market you are servicing should change in order for you to deserve higher prices. The other part that people get just extremely wrong is they think that the value, again, is in the services that they're providing. So what they'll often do is they'll put together a scope of work, laying out all of the individual things that they're doing. They will sell the idea of the individual services that they are doing for the client, when the reality is a good offer sells the outcome, not the service. This is where guys get it really wrong as well. When you are looking at a market to service, you do not think to yourself, hey, I can run influencer marketing for crypto. Hey, I can run influencer marketing for publicly traded companies. That's not the service you're offering. You're not going out and saying, hey, I can offer you a service where we'll be going out, getting influencers for you, and they have audiences of investors, and then they're going to talk to. That's not what you're selling. What you're selling is that you're able to actually help them reach tail and accredited investors at scale, at enormous scale that they never could have imagined possible. 1, 2 million, 3 million views on videos that they just never could have accessed otherwise. That is the selling point in my current business. In Thor's Hammer, the selling point is not, hey, you can get better deliverability and better service. The selling point is you can send cold emails and close deals way more easily. You can get in front of thousands and thousands of potential buyers of your product way more easily. That is the value prop, is that cold email is scalable, it's cheaper, and that our particular service and the people that you work with at our business are more equipped to handle large transactions, larger businesses, and can go out to market on your behalf at scales that you never would have otherwise imagined possible. And so what you need to do is frame who you're going after and what is the ideal end state for that person. And when you can get those two things right, then you're actually in the money on having a good offer. But simply selling services is not the way that you sell your value. You sell your value based on outcomes. Now, if you want a full list of offers that I've ran in the past, if you go to my Instagram, you can actually click the link in the description in order to get that document. And before you go, I'm doing a live webinar on how you can gain access to 50 to 150 or $250 million deals that would basically net you anywhere between $500,000 and $5 million per transaction. If you're interested, join the waitlist below. Make sure that you like and subscribe to the channel. And as always, I'm Alex Astry, and this is how you make your first million.